Most people trust the number that pops up on their arm cuff without question. Okay. But believe it or not, your blood pressure monitor is often lying to you. And it's not because the device is be broken. It's because there is a handful of everyday factors that distort the reading before it ever reaches the screen, and almost nobody accounts for these. Today, I want to walk you through exactly why your monitor might not be giving you a reading that reflects your um, true baseline blood pressure and the proper things to do instead to get the most accurate reading every single time. And let me start with the biggest mistake that I see more than any other one in my clinic. The first reason is that your cuff size is probably wrong. Blood pressure cuffs are designed around a specific arm circumference range, and using a cuff that does not match your arm size produces a systematically incorrect reading. If your arm circumference is larger than the cuff, it's designed for the cuff has to compress harder to occlude the artery. And this artificially inflates your systolic reading sometimes by 10 or 20 points. And if the cuff is too large or you have a smaller arm, the opposite happens and your reading comes out artificially low. Now, most standard cuffs sold in pharmacies are built for what is considered an average adult arm, but a significant portion of adults fall outside that range on either end because, let's be honest, what even is normal? The fix to this is simple. Measure your arm circumference at the midpoint between your shoulder and your elbow. Okay, this is right in the middle of your biceps when you flex. On the back of your blood pressure cuff box or the cuff itself, it should tell you this cuff was designed for arms 9 to 17. And for example, you can convert this to centimeters if needed. Reason number two is that your arm position is working against you. This is one that produces some of the most dramatic and consistent errors that has nothing to do with the cuff itself. Your arm needs to be supported at heart level or resting on a table for a reading to be accurate. If your arm is hanging down at your side or resting in your lap below heart level, hydrostatic pressure from gravity artificially raises the reading, now sometimes by 10 or more millimeters of mercury. If your arm is raised above heart level, the opposite happens and the reading comes out artificially low. And this is why the difference between checking your blood pressure sitting properly at a table versus checking it quickly while your arm rests in your lap on the couch can produce two completely different numbers within the same 5 minutes, even though nothing about your actual blood pressure has changed. The correct position is seated with your back supported feet flat on the floor, and your arm resting on a flat surface with the cuff positioned at approximately the same height as your heart. Now, before we get into the last two factors that most people have never even considered, if this is already starting to change the way you think about monitoring and checking your blood pressure at home, please consider subscribing, as it truly does help push this information out to the people that genuinely need to hear it the most. So, reason number three is the one that I have to talk to my patients about all the time, literally every single weekend clinic. And that mistake is taking your blood pressure in the middle of the day. Can't blood pressure is not a fixed number sitting quietly in your body waiting to be measured. It fluctuates constantly throughout the day in response to activity, stress, meals, temperature, and dozens of other variables. And the middle of the day is when that fluctuation is at its most extreme. If you check your blood pressure right after a stressful meeting, after walking briskly to grab lunch, a cup of coffee, or in the middle of a mentally demanding task, your sympathetic nervous system is already activated, and that alone can raise your systolic reading by 10 to 20 points compared to the same reading taken while genuinely at rest. This is why someone can check their blood pressure at 7 a.m. to get one number and then check again at 1 p.m. in the middle of a busy workday and get a reading that's 20 points higher despite nothing about their underlying cardiovascular health having changed at all. The fix to this is consistency and simplicity. Take your readings at the same time each day, ideally in the morning before caffeine and after sitting quietly for at least 5 minutes, rather than checking sporadically throughout a busy afternoon and trying to make sense of wildly different numbers. And the final reason is a trap that pretty much all of us have fallen into. And unfortunately, it's kind of the way that the healthcare system is designed, and that is a single blood pressure reading is not intended to be trusted. This is the single factor that causes the most unnecessary anxiety and honestly, the most unnecessary medication changes. And it truly has nothing to do with technique at all. Again, because we just learned that blood pressure fluctuates massively throughout the day, depending on dozens of different variables. One reading only catches a specific instance in that constant fluctuation, and that moment can land anywhere on the spectrum relative to your true baseline blood pressure. Okay, now the last part of the video is truly everything you need to follow to get the most accurate readings every single time you check your blood pressure. Let's run through this step by step together. This is what I call the complete at-home blood pressure checklist. What you want to do first thing before you sit down, make sure you've had no caffeine for at least 30 minutes before measuring you, haven't exercised for at least 30 minutes before measuring, to completely empty your bladder, because a full bladder can raise your reading by several points. And you want to make sure you have no talking, no texting, and no scrolling throughout the entire process. Next comes the correct setup. You want to sit in a chair with a back, not on a couch or the edge of a bed where you don't have anything to support your back. Make sure your feet are flat on the floor and are uncrossed. Have that back supported and have that arm resting on a flat surface, such as a table about the same height as your heart. You want to check your blood pressure on a bare arm. No rolled up sleeves bunching above the cuff, and try to not have any clothing between your skin and the cuff itself. Place that cuff directly on skin, positioned about 1 in above your elbow crease. Confirm that your arm circumference matches the range printed on your specific cuff before you begin. Okay, you probably would have already done this before. Next is you want to sit quietly first. Before you hit that button, rest in that position in silence for a full 5 minutes before taking that first reading. Do not check your phone and focus on intentional breathing. What I like to do is resonance breathing, where you breathe in through your nose for about 5 seconds and out through your mouth for 5 seconds. Then you want to take your readings. You want to take the first reading, write that number down, then wait 1 minute, and you want to take the second reading, write that number down, then wait 1 minute. Then what you can do is either take the lower of those two readings or average those two readings and write it down. That written down blood pressure, that's the first point that you want to use and keep in your log. For the timing of this, you want to make sure you're taking your readings at the same time each day. Okay. Ideally, first thing in the morning before coffee, about 20 minutes after you wake up, and the last thing before going to bed. So each day you'll get 2 readings total. Write down your readings with the date and time included. You want to do this for a full week. So you should have a total of 14 separate blood pressure readings. Then and only then, take the average of all those readings, right? The top number average, write it down, right? Then average out the bottom number of all 14 readings and write that down. Okay, once you get that, that is your true resting baseline. One high reading is a Maydadder point. A week of high readings is a pattern that's worth bringing to your doctor. Finally, then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. This is from the book of John, chapter 8, verse 32.